Hi, my name is Tiana Karamayas and I'm a Cavoodle puppy coach and breeder for Oodleway and River City puppies. As a coach, my philosophy is simple. A Cavoodle should always complement your lifestyle, not complicate it. And this is the foundation to everything I teach. For almost the past decade, I have been working in the breeding, training, grooming, and veterinary sectors of the small animal industry. I've also been raising Cavoodles for the past 16 years, so I have definitely learned a thing or two about the breed along the way. Now this podcast is all about Cavoodles. Raising Cavoodles, training Cavoodles, grooming Cavoodles, breeding Cavoodles, and how to shape the behavior of a Cavoodle puppy. So if you're a Cavoodle parent or you are looking at adding a Cavoodle to your family soon, then this podcast is for you. New episodes will be released each Tuesday morning, and you can follow me across all social media under the name @Oodleway for more tips and advice on Cavoodles. Thanks for tuning in. Hello and welcome back to episode 57 of the Cavoodle Coach podcast. My name is Tiana Karamayas and I'm your host and your Cavoodle puppy coach. Today, let's talk about a few grooming tools that everyone needs to have in their grooming bag if you own a Cavoodle. Now, I'm going to go through 4 tools that everyone needs, and then if you like this topic, we can dive into more about grooming Cavoodles and other products that you definitely need to have at home for your puppy. So let's dive into the first product that everyone needs if you have a Cavoodle puppy. Now, the brush that you need for your Cavoodle is a fine-toothed metal comb, and this is really important. Now, I used to work in a boutique grooming salon. I worked alongside groomers, and this is the one tool that they use to really find the knots in a Cavoodle's coat. So Cavoodles, if you didn't know, they don't have fur, they have hair. And that means the hair grows and grows and grows, and it gets really, really long. And the life cycle of the hair takes a long time before it falls out naturally. Whereas dogs who have fur, something like a Jack Russell, they have a very short life cycle for the fur, and it falls out very, very frequently. And that's when we have dogs who shed a lot of hair. Whereas Cavoodles, they don't shed a lot of hair, and that's because they have hair, not fur, and their hair grows for a really long time. Now, when a dog has hair and it grows and grows and grows, obviously it means that they will need their hair cut. Otherwise, the hair will grow and touch the floor. So we need to cut their hair very frequently, and we need to brush it very frequently to make sure it's not getting knotty. And if your Cavoodle wears a jumper, a collar, a harness, if they sleep in a bed, all of these things create friction on the coat, and when we have friction on the coat, it creates knots in their coat. And what can happen is if you don't find knots early, when they're just starting out, the puppy, your Cavoodle, will scratch at it because it's pulling on their hair, and then that little knot turns into a really big mat. And then when you go to the grooming salon, the groomer has to fully shave your dog because they are fully matted. And when you find a mat in a Cavoodle's coat, you actually have to have the clippers go underneath the mat to get it out. The clippers can't go through it. And so if your puppy is matted and that knot goes all the way down to their skin, the groomer has to use a pair of clippers with a blade that goes directly down to the skin, leaving your puppy practically bald with a very short haircut. And it's horrible for the puppy, and it's horrible for us, and they look really funny. So making sure we stay on top of brushing for our Cavoodles is essential, and the one tool you need is a fine-tooth comb. When you go to a pet shop, there are a million different brushes out there, and there are ones that have like black, they're not wire bristles, but they're more of a plastic bristles. Those ones there are not good for Cavoodles with their hair. You can find so many different brushes. Just go past them and just find yourself a fine-tooth comb. They are cheap. They're not expensive. You can get them on Amazon. And if you use a comb on your Cavoodle every single day and you brush them all over and you find no knots with it, it means your Cavoodle's coat is not free. Whereas if you're brushing and the comb gets stuck somewhere, it means there's a knot, and you have to go in and remove the knot. Now, if you have a Cavoodle and they are an adult dog, or they are curly in their hair, the next brush that is really beneficial to have is a long, bristled, slicker brush. And there's emphasis there on the long bristled part. So when you go to the pet store, Slicker brushes are the brushes where they have silver metal prongs, and there's usually quite a lot of prongs in a small proximity on the brush. And if you ask anyone at the pet shop and say, can you point out the slicker brushes, they'll be able to point it out for you, or you can just Google it. But because our cavoodles have a lot of hair, and it's usually long hair, thick, luscious, beautiful hair, we need to find a slicker brush that has long bristles so that it actually goes through the coat and reaches closer to the skin. Now, the reason why I didn't say slicker brush as the first brush you need is because a slicker brush will hurt a puppy, and we don't need them for puppies. And also, a slicker brush will brush over knots. The purpose of a slicker brush is not to find knots. It's not to brush out the coat so that it's really smooth and knot-free. The purpose of a slicker brush is to break apart curl clumps on a coat. So if you have a really curly coated cavoodle, the slicker brush will break those clumps apart, and then you go in with the comb to make sure there's no knots. The other purpose of the slicker brush is if you have a lot of hair on your cavoodle puppy, adult dog, sorry, not puppy. If you have a lot of hair on your cavoodle adult dog and you are blow drying them after the bath, the slicker brush is also used to really fluff out the coat to make sure you straighten out the hair to prep them for further brushing with the comb or clipping them with the grooming tools. So the slicker brush is not a brush that's going to find the knots in the coat. And that's why it's the second brush I mentioned, because the very first one we have is the fine tooth metal comb. And it has to be the number one comb in your grooming kit, because if it's not there, you will not be able to find the knots in your cavoodle's coat. If you just have a comb, you can get away with this being the only brush that you have for your cavoodle. The slicker brush can simply help make the process a little bit quicker if you have a curly coated cavoodle or if you are blow drying them. So those are the two brushes, and the only two brushes you are going to need for your cavoodle: the fine-toothed metal comb and a long bristled slicker brush. The third item that I really recommend everyone to have in their grooming kit is something called a dematting comb. And so with the dematting comb, it's an amazing little tool. It has silver prongs on it. It looks like a comb, but on the end of the comb, on the prongs, there's actually blades. And with this dematting comb, you can use it if you find a knot in your cavoodle's coat. And what it will do is those little blades will help break apart the knot so that then you can brush through it with your slicker brush and your fine tooth comb. So a dematting comb is really, really helpful because yes, it'll help break apart the knots, which can really help save your puppy if you're finding any knots on them. Now, something to be aware of with a dematting comb. We can't just use it on the same place for 10 minutes. That will rip out your cavoodle's hair and really hurt them. So we only do a few strokes of it through a knot, and then we try and get it out with a comb. Don't sit there brushing the same spot with the dematting comb over and over again, because it's too harsh and it pulls out your dog's hair. So that's the only thing to be aware of with the dematting comb. But it is one of my all-time favorite tools. And if you're listening to this podcast and you're going, wow, Tiana, I really wish I had some visuals here, I will be posting on my Instagram and my TikTok all of these different products and showing you a little bit on how to use them. So you can go onto my Instagram and my TikTok. It's at Oodleway, or you can search my name at Tiana Karamayas, or you can search at Cavoodle Coach. Any of those three, it'll come up, and I will be sharing some videos on the different tools that you need to groom your cavoodle on there. So that was fine-tooth metal comb, long bristled slicker brush, and the third one was a dematting comb. The fourth and the final product that is really good to have in your grooming kit as a bare minimum would be a pair of curved scissors. So curved scissors are really necessary for two main reasons. Number one, the hair between your cavoodle puppy's eyes grows so quickly, and you will find yourself trimming the hair every couple of weeks. And if you don't have a pair of scissors, you'll have to go to the groomers every couple of weeks, and that gets really expensive. So a pair of scissors to trim between the eyes is really important. The second reason why the curved scissors are really important to have in your grooming kit is because when you find a knot in your cavoodle's coat and the dematting comb doesn't get it out, then what you have to do is come in with your scissors and just snip it out very carefully. So don't snip the skin of your cavoodle, just the hair where the knot is. And this is really important because, like I said in the beginning of the episode, if you leave the knots to sit and fester in your cavoodle's coat, your cavoodle will scratch at it and it will turn into a really big mat, and then you won't be able to use scissors to remove it. You'll actually have to use clippers to shave it out, and then your cavoodle will be shaved by the groomer. So a pair of curved scissors is really important to have in your grooming kit for your cavoodle, and it's always best to cut out the knot when you see it as soon as it happens, because I promise you're not going to notice it in your cavoodle's coat. They have so much hair, it'll just blend in with the rest. There will not be a big chunk missing. So those are the 4 products that everyone needs in their grooming kit. They need the scissors, they need the curved scissors, the dematting comb, the long bristled slicker brush, and they also need a fine-toothed comb. Now, we can have all of these products, but again, how do we use them? How do we teach our cavoodle puppy to be happy and comfortable being brushed? How do we make sure they don't run away? How do we make sure they don't just try and bite the brush? How do we make sure it's an enjoyable experience for both us and our puppy? The answer to this is with a lot of early desensitization to all of the grooming tools and training our cavoodles to be happy and comfortable and to stand still while we are doing this. And this is really important because if you have a cavoodle, you are going to have to brush them every day of their life, every single day. And then every 6 to 8 weeks, they will have to be groomed fully because their hair grows too long. And so we cannot have a cavoodle puppy who won't be brushed and is scared of the grooming tools, because then we have a cavoodle puppy who is anxious. And if you go to the groomers with a dog who is anxious, they can start to bite the groomers, or they can be so knotty that the groomers charge you extra because it takes longer to groom your dog. So having a cavoodle who is comfortable with the entire grooming process is essential, and it needs to be part of your training regime for your cavoodle puppy. It is just as important as any of the other training. So if you have a cavoodle puppy or you have an adult cavoodle, and for either one you want to learn how to properly brush them, properly bath them, how to desensitize them to the grooming tools, and how to maybe even groom them from home yourself, which is so much easier to do than you think, and it will save you about $100 every 8 weeks of your cavoodle's life. And if you do the maths, that's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars across their life. I do have 2 programs available to you where you can learn about grooming and brushing and bathing your cavoodle. If you have a cavoodle puppy, I really encourage you to look into my Cavoodle Training Academy, because as part of that program, I will show you how to brush your puppy, how to bath your puppy, how to desensitize them to the blow dryer, how to desensitize them to the grooming tools, and how to trim between their eyes, trim their paws, and clean up their hygiene areas. And that's inside the Cavoodle Training Academy. And that's a really good place to start, because after that program, if you have really enjoyed the grooming part of your puppy, so brushing them, trimming between their eyes, blow drying them, trimming their paws, I then have another program called Oodleway Home Groom. And this is where you learn how to fully groom your cavoodle from the comfort of your own home. And like I said, it is so much easier than you think. And as long as your cavoodle stands still, absolutely anyone can groom their dog from home. And of course, inside the program, I teach you how to teach your cavoodle to stand still and how to use all the different grooming tools. So if you have a cavoodle puppy, I encourage you to join the Cavoodle Training Academy first. If you have an older cavoodle, Oodleway Home Groom will go through the entire process. Even if your cavoodle hates being brushed now, it'll show you how to desensitize them to the process, get them comfortable with it, and then how to fully groom them from home. And again, it saves you so much money down the track. And it also really increases your bond with your cavoodle puppy, because they have all of this newfound trust in you, and you get to sit there one-on-one for a couple of hours every couple of months and just spend it together grooming. So it's a wonderful experience. I really encourage everyone to try grooming their cavoodles at least once. And both of those programs are in the show notes, and you can have a look into them. If you have any questions about them, feel free to send me an email at hello@oodleway.co. But I promise, anyone can groom your dog from home. It doesn't just have to be people who have experience before. I had my partner pick up a pair of scissors for the first time, follow the home groom course, and he did it perfectly straight away. And there's a video on my Instagram if you want to see it. So anyone can do it, anyone can achieve it. You just have to have that desire to do the grooming yourself from home. So hopefully I see some of you in either of those programs, and I will see you again next week for another episode of the Cavoodle Coach podcast. This has been your Cavoodle coach, Tiana Karamayas. I'll see you later. Bye.